Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. So in this tutorial I will be showing you how to make a very cute little giraffe out of fondant. I am using tylose powder and shortening. Tylose powder basically allows the fondant to become harder faster if you're not using gum paste. I am now taking a ball of fondant and I'm basically just rolling it around until I get the shape that I want for the neck. I don't like my giraffe's neck to be too tall because this is a baby giraffe and I do like somewhat of a pudgy giraffe, so I'm just kind of using my fingers and forming the neck and the body to how I like it. So as you can see there, I have my little pudgy giraffe's body. You can go ahead and set that aside. I do weigh out all my fondant pieces. With this particular cake, there would be a giraffe topper and an elephant topper. So I want both of my pieces to be cohesive and to match. So I'll have the weights down below in the description. Okay, so now I am working on the head of the giraffe, and a little bit of powdered sugar. If it gets sticky in your hands, you could use either powdered sugar or shortening. I do use a 50-50 blend of powdered sugar and cornstarch, which is just my preference. So I'm just going to be rolling this, smushing a little bit to get the shape that I want for the giraffe. You definitely don't want nothing too heavy because, you know, it is going to be laying on the neck. So you don't want anything, you know, that's going to make the neck, you know, squish. All right, so now I am working on the mouth, or I guess it's the mouth of the giraffe. And I'm just using a little bit of fondant, white fondant. And you can make the giraffe any color. I just chose to go with the neutral color for this little guy. So I am rolling out the white fondant piece into like a little sausage and kind of like squishing it with my fingers until I get the shape that I want. And once I have the shape, I then take a little bit of edible glue and adhere it to the giraffe's little head. Okay, I think I got the shape that I want. Let's see how it looks on the body. Looks good. Okay, let's go ahead and adhere it. So if you don't know what edible glue is, it's basically just tylose powder with a couple tablespoons of warm water. I just shake it up, put it in a little jar, and then you have yourself some edible glue. If you need the recipe below, I'll include that as well in the description. Okay, so moving on, I am now working on the legs of the little giraffe. And again, all the measurements for the legs, the body, the head, and the arms will be in the description below. There will be another video on how to make the elephant. And it will be the same measurements or the weight as the giraffe. Okay, so the legs are each 3 grams, and same process, you know, usually like I use for the mouth. You're just going to roll it out into like a little sausage, form it to how you want the legs to look. I kind of like my legs a little long and then pudgy at the end. So I'm going to do that for both sides, and then just take a little bit of edible glue and adhere those to the side of the giraffe's body. Okay, so I'm taking the bottom of the, I want the bottom of the giraffe's foot flat. And reason being is because I'm going to add little hoofs, his little brown hoofs at the end. So all I did basically was just take a little bit of powdered sugar and sprinkle it on my mat, and then from there just kind of gently rub the bottom of his foot so you get kind of like a flat surface. So you can see there his feet, or his feet are kind of flat. So you'll see in just a little bit how I add his little hooves. All right, so now I'm taking a toothpick and I added a little bit of edible glue. And so at this point, the body is a little bit stiff, so it's good. I want to go ahead and add the toothpick so it's not too hard and there's no cracking. And I like to add a little bit of glue just to make sure that it's really in there. I'm not going to add the head quite yet because I still do need to work on the head. I need to do the nose, the mouth, his little antlers, eyes, and all that good stuff. So for the eyes, I'm using a little bit of black fondant. If you prefer to use a edible marker, you could do that. You could paint it. I just like to use edible fondant. I just like to use fondant. I just like how it looks, you know, the little light ball on his face. So you can use the end of a toothpick. I'm using my cookie scribe. Obviously the hole was too small for me, so I just used the back of my paintbrush so I can add his little eyes in there. And then just a tiny bit of glue, because if you use too much and you put in the black eyeballs, there'll be some bleeding, so you just want the tiniest bit of glue. And look at his little face, it's coming along just so cute. Okay, so let's set his little head aside, and now let's go ahead and work on his antlers. So I'm going to use the back of my paintbrush to make the holes, so that way when the antlers are nice and stiff, I can just stick them in there. I don't need to use any floral wire or toothpicks or anything. I know that since I use tylose, my fondant's going to be pretty stiff pretty fast, so I'll just wait for those to get stiff and then go ahead and add his little antlers. So I didn't measure these only because since they're so tiny, the scale won't detect any weight on them. So just kind of eyeball it, you know, nothing too thick, nothing too thin. And I do recommend that you have these at least set out for a couple hours, just so that they can harden. If you're in a rush and you didn't have time to make them, you could always use thin spaghetti instead of toothpicks, and those work great as well. If not, then floral wire is always a great choice as well. Okay, so still working on the little antlers. And I do want to have like a tiny little ball at the end. Just, you know, most pictures I've seen, there's always a tiny little ball at the end. And then I will be painting those brown later. So, alright, so set those aside, let those dry. Okay. So now let's go ahead and work on the front legs. So I want my little guy to kind of be sitting, and I want his two little legs right in front of him. So same process that I did with the legs on the side. I just basically start off with two little sausages and then flat out the bottom of his little legs, so that way I can add his little brown hooves. So as you can see there, I kind of want these a little bit longer because they're going to be in front of his chest, so I don't want them to look too small, or short I should say, sorry. And if you have any questions below, if I do miss any steps or I wasn't really explaining myself too well, please, you know, leave your questions below. I'm pretty good about answering any questions that you guys may have. Okay, so I think we're almost there. Make sure that they're evenly in height and make sure that you get that flat bottom. Okay, so now I have my brown fondant, and as I mentioned earlier, the reason why we have the flat bottoms on the legs, his side legs and his front legs, is because I want to add his tiny little hooves. So I didn't measure these, I kind of just eyeballed them. And you're going to need 4 of those. So what I did was just take a little ball of brown fondant, rolled it around, and kind of squished it with my finger until I got the thickness that I wanted. And just make sure that all of them try to look the same, and that one is not thicker than the other. And again, just use your edible glue. If you don't have edible glue, that's fine. You can always use a tiny bit of water. Water works just as fine. Okay, so a little bit more edible glue, and we're gonna adhere his front legs. And look, our little guy is coming along. Oh, so adorable. There you go, look at that body. Alright, now we need to add his hooves to his legs on the side. Tiny bit of glue. And let's add those hooves. All right. And his body is basically done. Okay, so I couldn't wait to add the antlers. I kind of don't have patience, so here I am adding the antlers. They actually felt pretty good, so. And there goes his tiny little head. I'm now adding the nose using the end of my cookie scribe. Okay, so now for the fun part, to kind of get your giraffe looking like a giraffe. I am using the edible paints. And this is the brown color. So just go ahead and start painting little dots all over your giraffe. For this process, it definitely have your giraffe dry overnight. The paint does take a little bit to dry. So I'm using a little bit of edible glue to adhere the head to the body. And this body has actually dried for a couple hours. And so now he's ready to be painted. Look at him. Alright, so now to add the final details, his tiny little spots. So if you can't get a hold of edible paint, no problem. You can use your gel paint. Definitely dilute it with a little bit of water and just a little bit at a time. He will need to dry overnight, so just set him aside. You can throw him in the oven with just the oven light on for him to dry. Alright, so we're all done here. I hope this video and this tutorial helps. If you have any questions, please comment below. And here is the completed giraffe. Thanks guys for subscribing. Bye.